A lot of people have been failed by the conventional way of doing medicine. In 2017, there was a study done that showed that we're actually spending up to 17% of our gross domestic product or equivalent to that on healthcare, which is a very unsustainable track. That's higher than any other country. Plus, we're producing one of the worst performing countries in terms of treating chronic diseases. So what about all those people that are going through the system, and it might be you, that have gone through everything they can possibly do for treatment, to finding out what they can do to get back to health, and where do they go? Well, ozone therapy is one of those things that you might have heard about from a doctor or a friend or your clinic that you're going to, and you want to learn more about it. So this video is just going to be a really concise explanation of what ozone therapy is, and I'm just going to try to explain it in layman's terms of the background, its safety, the benefits, and what it's primarily used for. And my name is Micah. I'm known as the Ozonaut, which was a term given to me after a medical trip to a country called El Salvador. It's important to note that I'm not a medical practitioner, so none of this can be constituted as medical advice. I'm just a guy that knows a lot about ozone. I've read pretty much all the literature there is to know about out there. I do the most up-to-date videos on ozone. It's a very niche kind of small thing, so not a lot of people know about it. But I'm kind of one of the guys to go to online when it comes to ozone therapy. So a lot of people might not realize when you're referring to ozone therapy, you're actually referring to the medical use of ozone as a gas. Oxygen is O2, which is two oxygen atoms that have been bonded together, while as ozone is O3, which is three oxygen atoms that are bonded together, which make it super unstable and gives us the properties that we actually want from it. A lot of people know about ozone because of pollution or the industrial applications or something of that nature, but ozone therapy is extremely different from those topics, so we're not going to be getting into those, although there's some misnomers surrounding it. But ozone therapy uses a pure medical grade mixture of oxygen and ozone and applies it in different ways. Ozone therapy actually has a really far-reaching history going back to 1871. I was able to find one of the original resources that I could anyway. In 1871, of a doctor in Germany who was actually using ozone therapy to disinfect wounds. And there was a Dr. Stoker who was using ozone therapy in World War I for the treatment of gangrenous and infected wounds that was oftentimes fatal for soldiers, but with ozone he was actually able to curb the infection and eliminate it and save the person who was infected by it. So that's where it really got its history. People started to be like, wow, they're getting rid of infections with ozone. Then they started to look into ozone therapy and evaluate it a bit more and be like, well, if we can use it on the skin, are there other ways we can use it? And speeding up to the 1960s, it really started to get a scientific basis when Dr. Veliobaci and Dr. Hansler started to study it in a scientific manner. And that ended up laying pretty much the scientific foundation for ozone therapy that a lot of other people were able to build off. So that was super important. But speeding up today, there's over 50,000 practitioners that use ozone therapy around the world on a daily basis. And there's a ton more scientists and people collecting data on behalf of ozone therapy. So it's really kind of a growing thing, and especially even just in the last 5 years, we've really seen quite a surge in the use of ozone therapy. Where a lot of people get hung up on ozone therapy is the safety. So they might have heard about ozone as a pollutant or as a disinfectant or for its industrial applications, but we're talking about ozone therapy, again, which is going to be different. But also, you can never breathe ozone. The ozone therapy advocates and the ozone therapy naysayers agree on this. Ozone is bad to breathe because when you breathe it in, it's an oxidant, remember, and it really wants to take that third oxygen atom and go off and grab some other material. That's called oxidation. So when you're breathing in ozone, you're actually breathing in a molecule that's going to directly interact with your lung tissue. Now, that wouldn't be a problem if your lung tissue had an antioxidant system. Antioxidant systems will quench ozone. So if there's an antioxidant and there's ozone, it'll quench it without the ozone actually interacting with the tissue that's surrounding it. So that's why we can safely apply ozone therapy. And again, it's small, judicious uses of ozone therapy. We're not using a large amount. We're using just a very small stimulus. But that's why you can use ozone therapy in other parts of the body, like the blood or the rectum or the ears, because there's an antioxidant system there that is going to quench the ozone before it's able to directly interact with the other important tissues and cause harm to them. So it's the antioxidant system that is really what is needed to defend against ozone, and that's found in most parts of the body. but not the lungs. Now, the International Scientific Committee of Ozone Therapy has actually published a report that says there's basically a negative side effect to ozone therapy every 6 out of 100,000 times the treatment is performed, which is a higher safety record than aspirin. So it's one of the safest things that we've seen that can be applied. A common question that people have is, well, if I do ozone therapy, what are common experiences? Well, number one, it's important to know that if you are seriously overloaded with infections, there can be something called a Herxheimer reaction, which is where it's kind of a good thing. But basically, it's where your immune system will turn on. It'll start killing off the infection in your body, which releases a lot of endotoxins into your body at the same time, because it just all of a sudden started waking up and killing off the stuff. But this can make people feel really sick. So you don't necessarily want to initiate a Herxheimer reaction. You want to stay below that. But that is something that people can experience. When they're not experiencing a Herxheimer reaction, people are commonly experiencing an increase in energy, a decrease in brain fog, an increase in cognitive function, a decrease in pain and inflammation. And commonly, too, people have a sense of well-being after doing an ozone therapy. But again, if you have a serious overload of infections, it might take you 3, 4, 5, 6 treatments before you really start feeling that good feeling from ozone therapy. If you don't have an overload in infections, you'll probably start feeling some of those results pretty quickly. How ozone therapy is administered really depends on the industry you're in. For this video, we're going to be focusing on the medical application, or the primary care, which would be chronic disease, preventative medicine, and things that are going to benefit the whole system. But there's also cosmetic care, dental care, and ozone injections, which would be for like slip discs and things of that. So there's really a lot of different areas that ozone therapy can be applied, but we're going to be covering primarily just the medical application, or the primary care application. So within the medical application, there's actually another two categories of how ozone therapy is applied. So we have ozone therapy, medical primary care, and then another two categories. And the first category is systemic, which means that when you apply this type of ozone therapy, it actually benefits the entire body because it's working with fundamental systems. And then there's local, meaning that it's only working with one area of the body. So say I had an infection on my hand, I could actually wrap a bag around it and expose it to ozone to help eliminate the infection. But that wouldn't necessarily be helping the rest of my body. So there are systemic treatments with ozone therapy that help the entire body, and there are local treatments with ozone therapy that just help a part of the body. For systemic treatments, there's primarily 2 different ways that it's applied. Number one is major autohemotherapy. This is commonly called MAH. And there's a lot of different nuances and ways it's done, but the important thing is that they're drawing out blood, usually 60 up to 300 cc's of blood, so that's like one syringe like this size, and they're mixing it with ozone, and then they're putting it right back into the vein, and this is going to help the whole body. The other way is through rectal insufflation, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's kind of like doing a ozone gas enema. Not necessarily the most glamorous, but it's actually really effective, and it has had a lot of study and research behind it that shows that rectal insufflation is not quite as good as doing the blood treatments, but it's definitely up there, and it can be done on a daily basis, and it's super easy to do. So these are the 2 primary ways that ozone therapy is administered for medical purposes: major autohemotherapy, including blood, and rectal insufflation. So how ozone therapy works is actually very commonly misunderstood. A lot of people think of it as when you put it into the vein that it's going to last for a long time, that it's a disinfectant. But here's the basis of how ozone therapy works. Imagine you take a drug. It usually is going to turn a system on or turn a system off, and then your body makes an appropriate reaction based on it turning something on or off. Whereas ozone therapy is actually just stimulating the body to work better on its own. This is called self-regulation or homeostasis. So imagine you set an alarm clock for yourself. You're sleeping, and then the alarm clock wakes you up, and then you get up and get going on with your day. The same thing with ozone therapy. It's not forcing you to get up, but it's stimulating the body to get up and get moving so it can better perform on its own. Essentially what we're doing is we're taking a molecule that's a little bit of an aggravant, but we're taking such a small amount that it's not damaging. And they actually are able to measure just exactly what it's doing. But we're taking a very small amount of this aggravant and we're introducing it into the body, which basically, like I said, it kind of wakes it up to get up and get moving. So we're taking this oxidant It stimulates an antioxidant response. It stimulates something called the NRF2 pathway, which is the same pathway that's used for fasting and when you exercise. So it's activating all these very good fundamental things to produce this effect of homeostasis. And homeostasis or self-regulation is kind of a buzzword, but there's a lot of scientific backing to this. And if you really want to get into the weeds on the scientific biochemistry of ozone therapy, there's a link below in the description of this video. For those of you that just want to know it's there or actually want to read it, it's pretty intensive, but you can read all of that information on how ozone therapy is actually interacting in the body and the exact biochemical pathways that it's affecting. So the benefits of ozone therapy, you can kind of go online and you'll see lists where people just have like 100 benefits listed out of doing ozone therapy. I don't like to do that because whenever I see that, it just poses this red flag, and it's kind of like somebody's just trying to say, oh, look at all these hundreds of benefits, you know, and how great this therapy is. Ozone therapy, I like to kind of just boil it down into a few, you know, but because it's so fundamental, yeah, there's a lot of benefits to it, but it's like saying the 500 benefits of exercising. Of course, like when you're overweight, exercising is going to help you, or when you're underweight, exercising the right kind is going to help you to build muscle. So those would technically be two different benefits, kind of the same thing. But anyway, with ozone therapy, there are three things that I kind of like to say that it does for people. Number one is increasing metabolic efficiency. Number two is improving blood flow. And number three is balancing the immune system. Now, for some people, this might be a tremendous biohack, helping them to prevent diseases, live more optimally, while for others, it might be a great treatment for cancer, Lyme, and autoimmune diseases. So according to lead scientists like Dr. Veliobaci and Dr. Frank Schallenberger, and really a whole host of other scientists, ozone therapy is able to actually improve metabolic efficiency and more specifically, oxygen efficiency. So oxygen efficiency is important for us for creating and utilizing energy. It's really important for you to feel the way you do or to improve in your health. So oxygen efficiency, think of a basketball player who shoots 100 baskets. He might only make 50 of them, as opposed to a basketball player who shoots 100 baskets and makes 90 of them. So that's 90% efficiency through 50% efficiency. And in the same way, we can breathing in oxygen, but that's just speaking to the amount that we're breathing in, not necessarily how well we're utilizing it on a molecular level. So oxygen efficiency, if we can improve that, we can have more energy, and it's very fundamental to reparation and healing in the body. And in a publicly available lecture by Dr. Frank Schallenberger, he charts all his data on why people, as they age, are actually decreasing in oxygen efficiency, or as we get sick, we're actually decreasing in oxygen efficiency. So this is really important for our bodies to be able to utilize the oxygen that we're breathing in really well. Another area that ozone therapy helps with is improving the blood flow. So the blood flow is just how well your blood is basically flowing throughout your body. Imagine the difference between molasses and water. You definitely don't want molasses running through your veins because it's going to be slow and sticky, whereas water is going to be fluid and turbulent and be able to get to the areas that it needs to. So if we're sick, or if something's going on in our body, or we're just not getting the proper nutrition, or whatever it is, our blood flow can actually decrease. And this might not sound like much of an issue, but it's actually a pretty big problem for people. It can lead to diseases and inflammation, all sorts of stuff. And the reason for that is because blood flow is important for something called gas exchange. Our blood needs to be able to get down to tissues on a very, very small level. It needs to be able to drop things off and to get things on the bus so that it can get rid of them. So when I'm breathing, I'm actually getting rid of things that my body didn't need. So when we improve the blood flow, or the blood rheology it's often called, we're actually improving the way that our blood flows throughout the body and improving the ability of it to do that gas exchange, to exchange nutrients in tissues that need it. The third thing that ozone therapy does is it modulates the immune system. So this is different from boosting the immune system, or immune balancing it's called, but this is different from boosting the immune system, which is where you're just kicking that sucker up and just hoping for the best. So that's kind of a one-dimensional aspect, and it's a good thing, obviously, if you need it. So boosting the immune system is just to raise it up, whereas immune balancing or modulation, you could have an overperforming immune system like autoimmune disorders, or when the immune system gets so hyperactive that it actually starts to attack the body. So it can help to bring those down, and at the same time, if we have underperforming immune systems, it can help to bring those up. That would be like people who are immune suppressed by cancer drugs or steroids, or just infections and things of that nature. So it can actually help to bring it up. So it's a multi-dimensional in that it's helping the immune system to balance itself. It's not necessarily forcing it to go one way or the other, but just providing a stimulate so that the immune system can autocorrect and know what to do. And this is hugely helpful in so many areas, and it's also why a lot of people don't understand, well, how can it help with an autoimmune disorder and somebody who has infections at the same time? And that's why. It's because it's able to balance the immune system out. So Dr. Rowan demonstrated a very impressive case study on a severe autoimmune disease. His own immune system was attacking the body, so doctors put him on high doses of steroids to suppress the immune system, which is commonly done, but it didn't help, which it commonly doesn't. By removing an oral infection and regular ozone therapy, Dr. Rowan actually claimed to be able to reverse the symptoms and bring the immune system back into balance, which you can see here. There's clearly a huge difference between what this guy was going through before ozone therapy and what he was going through afterward. And in addition to this, Dr. Rowan actually has 23 just testimonies on his website about people who have done ozone therapy with autoimmune disorders and got better. So ozone therapy is used to treat a lot of different diseases, but it's not ever really administered as a sole treatment for something. And this is why Dr. Rowan says ozone therapy is able to treat a lot but cure nothing. Ozone therapy is never really used as a sole treatment for something, but it's a fantastic synergistic treatment to conventional and alternatives. So people who have cancer can do it whether they're doing the conventional or the alternative route, and it's just really synergistic to what a lot of people are doing. And again, we're not necessarily forcing the body to do something, we're just providing a stimulus so the body can better operate on its own. And this is why ozone therapy is not necessarily a silver bullet for any indication in particular, other than like oral and topical skin infections. It's really, really good for that because it's just such a strong antiseptic. But it's not really a silver bullet for anything in particular. So it's able to work with a lot of different diseases because it works on a very fundamental level. Some of the common diseases might include cancer, autoimmune disease, Lyme disease, infections, arthritis, chronic fatigue, chronic pain, ear infections, heart disease, allergies and sinusitis, dental cavitations and infections, and Alzheimer's. Again, it's used for a lot more than that. You can go to lists that kind of list everything out, but if you understand kind of what ozone therapy is doing in the body, that can better help you to understand how it might fit in for you. And again, you always want to consult a medical practitioner if you're ever going to try this kind of stuff. Ozone therapy is also commonly used in athletics, so like I said, a lot of professional sports teams and athletes are using ozone therapy for enhancement. And it's commonly used in biohacking or preventative care circles. So these are people that either want to prevent diseases or just live more optimally. So a lot of them are doing ozone therapy because it helps with the increase in energy, helps with decrease of brain fog, decrease fatigue, and things of that nature. I hope this video was helpful for you. It was just intended to dip your toes into the water on ozone therapy. Is it going to be good for you? That's not something I can answer. I just want to lay out the information and let you make an informed decision on ozone therapy with your medical practitioner. But I hope this helps give an overview of ozone therapy, its background, its benefits, and how it works. If you would actually click the like button below the video, that really helps other people to see this video. So I hate to ask for that, but the YouTube algorithm essentially says like, hey, if people are liking the video, that means it's really good, so other people will watch more of it. And that really helps me out. Like I said, ozone therapy is this tiny little niche. Not very many people know about it, but I think more people should. So if you could like the video and subscribe if this was helpful for you, that would be really fantastic. And keep a lookout for more videos. We'll be talking about ozone therapy pretty much nonstop on this channel.